I think I'm live. Um, for some reason, Guy didn't show up. I don't know. Maybe he will later. Um, if he comes, let's give him a big welcome. Usually, he writes me if there is some impediment. So I don't know exactly what happened there. Hi, everyone. I see that there are 4 people online. Um, as long as the coaching doesn't begin, we can also have a conversation. So if you feel like chatting, I can have a chat with you. Just leave a comment. Otherwise, I'm going to summarize a bit what happened since last week. By the way, how's the? Maybe you can tell me how the audio quality is, because last time it was weird for some reason. But I hope today it should be fine. Let me settle in a bit. I'm a bit sorry that I cannot offer you the normal format. So I talked to you last time about my 3 projects, my 3 nested projects. Let me recap a bit. So the top one would be uh, a design, let's call it a utopia design software, something like that, Google Earth for the future, or how things could be. And then the second would be to analyze my bioregion and see what is possible for that bioregion, maybe more in detail, and kind of write a narrative or try to understand how one could move everything at once, everyone at once here, create a movement. And then the third, which has been the focus for me this week, is to actually do something concrete for me, my family, and a little community to actually create maybe a proto-bee, an eco-village, something like that. Um, and this, I created another YouTube post with a bit more, with a clearer vision. And I'm going to recap that quickly here. I found the frame of 10 families a good one, a useful one, because when you talk about Dunbar tribe, it's hard to imagine, like what does it look like? How does it get organized? You know, if you think about, I don't know, 100 people, it's hard to imagine, like what kind of people are in there, and how is it structured. But if you think about 10 families, then suddenly things get clear, right? Like you have 10 family, 5 people on average, 2 parents, a couple of children, maybe another child or an elderly person, something like that, around that. So you would have 50 people and around 20 children, and all sorts of things become possible if there are these 10 families that want to support each other, that are committed to doing so. And since then, I've been on fire and like, okay, I need to find the other 9. And I reached out to a friend, and we kind of agreed to have a regular weekly call to kind of plot what that must look like. And I made a few posts on Facebook on various local groups, permaculture local group, blah, blah, blah. And actually, there is a hunger for these out there. So people have started reaching out to me. And out of that, so I've had another conversation with a mom that I didn't know before. And it's interesting. It's let me say, I just got a message. Doesn't seem to be Guy Sengstock. Um, so out of these conversations suddenly start coming interesting reflections about value, because suddenly someone says, we want to go in the mountains, want to go to the mountains. And I think, do I want to go to the mountains, right? Someone says, I really want to do homeschooling. And then we have to consider, right? I have to discuss with my wife about, yeah, do we want to homeschool, or is a school good enough? Or do we want a free school, or do we want non-school? Um, and obviously then my friend needs to want the same, and I'm imagining the complexity of having 3, 4, 5, 10 families in the group and having to agree. Same thing about finding location. It's actually quite frustrating here in Switzerland. So there are these websites where you can look for locations and sort them by price or by size, etc., etc. And it's like, whoa, all of this is very expensive, you know. And then the other aspect is, if you really want a place where you can do permaculture, then you need a field. Uh, the best would be kind of like a couple of hectares of agrarian land, and the law here is doesn't help, because you need to be a certified farmer to buy that. I mean, it's a good law in the sense that it protects our agrarian land against speculations, right? So it's really like you can buy it if you are uh, certified and intending to use it commercially, I guess, or like at least to use it as agrarian land, you know, like not to just let it become forest or to build stuff on it. So yeah, situation here is highly regulated, and these are all, you know, the difficulties of getting something started here specifically, and it has been, you know, giving me a lot of trouble sleeping in the night, a lot of processing time, and it's actually kind of exhausting, because it's like, whoa, it's going to be hard to uh, it's going to be a miracle, right? If we find the right people, if we agree on this, on the place, if we get along, if we manage to find you know, kind of like a structure, a legal structure to put that money in to be able to start a mortgage and pay the land. And so there's a lot of complexity and complication that comes out of that. Um, and when I think about how, you know, everyone who even thinks about this kind of idea has to go through this, then it's quite depressing, you know, like overwhelming. Like, wow, how much it has taken me a while to even get to this point, to even get to this idea, to this frame, to this, you know, this is what I want, blah blah blah. But now this is only the beginning, right? This is only the beginning of a long process of negotiation and thinking and even sacrifice, because, you know, like where we live, it's not bad. It's uh it's not bad at all, you know. Like the the bad elements are maybe the fragility of not being on a piece of land, and the lack of the opportunity to have real, you know, tight knit community. It's not that the, you know, like we still live in a place where we see more or less the same 300 families, you know, walking around, and so there is the opportunity to have uh, community here, just not that level of you know, uh, coherence. You know, I'm thinking out loud, so maybe there is an opportunity there. The problem is we it's just we are paying rent, and so there is this inherent fragility. And also, thinking from a permaculture point of view, yes, we have a nice community garden that uh, I can play in a lot and learn a lot, but it's not really like a landscape that you can remodel with waterworks and regenerate and all of that. So these are the constraints at the moment, um, and it is, yeah, it's a big question about how to go on. Like, in a way, what we decided to do is we basically have to kind of set the frame to say, okay, this is absolutely a must if we really want to create this group. These are the values that we really want, and this is the stuff that we don't want, right? Like, so we have a clear frame so that there is not too much discussion with new potential families, so that we can kind of like have a pre-filtering at the beginning. So that makes sense. Um, And then for me there, like a big question that has opened up, that has become relevant, the last year with my son is, okay, what does schooling, what does parenting look like, what does education look like? Because again, like, if you have enough families, you have the potential to create something, right? Like, it could become a little local school. And here too, there are like legal complications, right? Like, so in different areas of Switzerland, you need to have a diploma, or you need to have a certified teacher if you want to actually have a school, or even homeschool. Homeschooling is not allowed everywhere in Switzerland if you are not, if, if you want to teach directly, if you're not certified, as a teacher. And uh, and in the places where it is allowed, um, it's you're not allowed to non-school. Like, it has to be like homeschooling. You can homeschool, but it has to have a specific program, which has to stay, within certain guidelines of the state. So, yeah, I'm really realizing how much of an impediment all this regulation is here. I'm thinking about Nassim Taleb talking about Switzerland. He likes, he, it's he talks about how the distribution of powers here, which we do have, um, it's not like it's necessarily very interesting, but it generates a lot of stability. And he calls it like a dictatorship from the bottom. And yeah, I guess I guess it's accurate in some ways. And so for me now the question is, okay, what kind of education do I want for my child, right? And is that more important than anything else? Because, for example, here in the city where we live, there are a couple of free schools, which I think are also called Sudbury schools. So the idea is it's a school where there is no curriculum, right? So the children are there, age mixed. The schools are relatively young, so it's not uh, like the full spectrum, but and there they have opportunities to learn. There are some facilitators, or tutors, I don't know how you call them. And it's an interesting proposal, right? For me, it's quite new. I personally went to a Waldorf school, which is also an alternative schooling method, but and there are things that I appreciate from that method too. Like, there are some uh, rituals, and there is some structure there that I think it's good. Um, but then whether it's necessary, or whether it has some other downsides, that's the question. Like, I've seen a number of YouTube videos now about this new movement, like, that really criticizes the whole concept of schooling, the whole idea of age separation, and this pipeline, this factory pipeline for people, and everyone has to learn at the same time, otherwise you fail, and all of that. um, and there is something in my bone that tells me, uh, playing is learning, and like the enthusiasm of doing what you're interested in, um, is is seems like key thing, right? That I don't know if you can coerce it within uh, this frame. Or on the other hand, like, that's what I hear from everyone that I talk about this topic. That is more like, that never had thoughts about this. Well, I went to public school and I came out okay. Like, in a way, like, these people are still people. Like. And the question is, okay, what is the deep difference that would come out of being completely unconstrained? I see that May Ray wrote. Hi, May Ray. Did Guy forget? It's a good question. I don't know. Again, like, usually if there is an impediment, he writes me, right? Like, last week, he, he didn't feel good, and and he wrote me. And today I was not able to reach him, so I'm sorry about that. I keep calling these coachings, but um, I, I'm sure there is a good reason, and we'll learn about it, or at least I will. Not sure I will tell you. Yeah, I did, May. I did text him, but yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Uh, right now it says two concurrent viewers, which is probably me and you. So, and you know, I'm kind of self coaching right now. Um, I hope it's interesting at least. Maybe I should, like reframe or retitle these videos after the fact, so that people know that it's kind of like a different frame, self coaching, let's call it. um, yeah, I was waiting because I didn't want to kind of exposing him, for this situation. But it's okay. It's like that's what happens when you experiment things. Things happen that were not expected. Like maybe we have to set up. We have to write each other before, and just to confirm, or something. I'll see. I'm not sure I would be able to tell you why or what happened there. Anyway, so these are the things that have been in my mind. The whole values that one needs to consider uh, by moving into a community, right? And looking for people, and this is about money and people's savings and retirement plans, and like this takes into account all this stuff. So I feel slightly overwhelmed by all this complexity. And it would be cool if there was maybe like an incremental path there, but I'm not sure what that would look like. It's more like we are in this, I don't know, if I have to frame it negatively, in this golden cage where so much is already right, so much is, at least where I live, uh, we have our daycare just below us, and we have um, you know kindergarten would be just right next in the next building, and there is a little, there are people around here, there is the garden, there is all that stuff. um but it's obviously it's not a proto b, it's not it's not the new civilizational experiment, all that ambitious stuff. um and so it's like, okay, do you want to give up on how much do you want to give up to be able to really like make the shift, right? um and and it's not just about me, it's about me, my wife, my child, the next family, and the next family. And if I really want, if we really manage to get to 10 families, yeah, it seems like a miracle. It seems like highly improbable, to be honest. And it's I'm a I'm an optimistic person, and to a degree, to a fault often. Like I just have all these ideas and I kind of get manic. But then, like that's you're very optimistic and everything looks meaningful, but then you're kind of detached from what's actually possible from the world, and then I guess you get this feeling of the wheels turning, but the car is not moving, and then it tires you, and there is a there is a downside as well. I mean, I'm not fully bipolar, but for sure there are these swings where I'm like, "Whoa, there is all of these. It's all so interesting. There is so many possibilities, right?" But then like to actually create change involves making choices and commitments, and that's the hard part for me, I would say. I mean, for sure, I'm. That's also the cool thing about community. One has to remember is that there are many people with different personalities, and that's something that I'm already being happy that I'm not in a stage of my life where I'm just single student, because then I would have to kind of it would have some other advantages. Um, but it's not this now. I can talk to my wife, who's way more conscientious and stable, and kind of like a way that like willing to ask critical questions, and unwilling to just jump into the next adventure without having kind of like solved certain basics. May's writing, I knew two Swiss brothers who would make their money as ski instructors in St. Moritz during the winters. In the summers, they fly to Canada and farm rented land for their holiday. Yeah, I mean, you know, all sorts of lifestyles are possible. And, for me personally, as a web engineer, uh, income is not really the problem. Like I, I can work from anywhere, and I I don't I can find a job easily. I don't expect my job to be the first one to disappear. Let's say. So there I have a certain security. Um, the only thing that I've been struggling with lately is that all this talk and thinking about civilization redesign, let's call it, is uh, is making it harder for me to concentrate on this just making websites for corporations and helping them make more money. And that a there is a longing for making something that feels more in line with everything else that I'm interested in and that I value as a person. And I don't know, on the other hand, obviously, when it's about money, it has to also hold water. It has to um, someone has to be willing to pay for your service. And it's either a transaction, or it's either going to be a transaction, or it's going to be people funding, like we really like patronizing, is that the correct verb? um but and I set up a subscribe star. It's in the description if you're interested. So there is the dream that enough people will support my work so that I can really like take a month free, and then maybe take another month free half a year later, and then take more months free, and unpaid, and then to invest into this wave, this exodus, this transition, um, with the three projects that I was talking about. So I guess that the first one, where I design, something like a map where people can zoom in and see the bioregions, and then see the eco villages that spread around along the landscape, and that kind of a simulation of civium, a civium simulator. That and that's the thing that could be most useful at the global level, let's say. Everything else is more relevant to our local area. But for example, if that's something that interests people and inspires them, I would I would be more enthusiastic working on that uh, than right now my day job. But these things are difficult. Once this was already a couple of years ago. Once I checked, there are these Patreon statistics, the top earners on Patreon and that kind of stuff. And I basically noticed that only the first one or two pages of these accounts earn enough so that I could, uh, live, have a living here in Switzerland, in Zurich. I mean, Zurich is admittedly the most expensive city in the world when it comes to cost of living. So yeah, I mean, it's difficult. Switzerland has a lot of, again, like stability and lots of security and all of that. And obviously there is also my extended family, and so it's hard to think about leaving because of all these reasons. But I'm seeing that there are also many impediments to experimenting, trying something a bit more alternative. So how long have I been talking? I don't know if I see that. Whoa, 42 minutes already. Um, Let me see. I just got a message. Mm. Yeah, I don't know exactly what happened. I, but I think that I was able to give you a good summary of my current situation. So if you have, yeah, I don't know. I think there is no easy solution to all of this. Um, it's going to take a while. It's yeah, it's going to take a miracle or some or a few miracles, and maybe, I think for now I'm going, when it comes to the whole thing aspect that I've been talking about, the 10 families project, I'm going to keep talking to my friend and wife and so on about what do we really want. And so that's one aspect. The other aspect is we are going to keep looking for locations, because there is a dialectic there that if you look at places, then you start seeing, wait, I wouldn't want to go there because, and then you kind of like make all these things explicit. And if you make them explicit, then you can start ranking them, like, okay, this is really a must, this is and then maybe it helps uh, making a selection, or see, okay, what kind of value do you need to sacrifice if you want to achieve everything else. And then the third is we're going to keep looking for families, interacting, having calls. um, but something that I was thinking about that could be also useful is actually reach out to things that are already existing, like little communities, or little even families that are doing something with permaculture. There is a movement here, but it's tiny. Um, there are many people that are interested and many people that are doing the courses and in the groups, but on the ground, it's not like we have these ecotopia here. Not yet. um, on the other hand, Switzerland has very good values, like we have conserved a lot of our forests for being so small. So there is a lot of green around. But on the other hand, it is also very settled, like there's no place where you can just walk for days and meet and not meet anyone. So imagine like if it's Canada, but like shrunk down to a very small size. So keeping many of the people, and like the distances between cities very very small. But still there are many, mountains and forests and so on. Anyway, I think I'm going to stop now. Thank you, May Ray, for uh, leaving your comments. It's nice to have a bit of company. I hope this is interesting, useful. I think many people who take this seriously are going to have to go through this process, and that's what I'm going through. And hopefully, in a few years, we will be able to look back and say, Nick, you had a blind spot. This is the solution, or I don't know, or see, just laugh and say, this is the process. This is the way it goes. Thank you very much, and I'm going to end the live streaming now.